What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and this Kimmel stuff is not going away, and it's really getting interesting as it's gone all the way up the flagpole now from ESPN to Disney corporate, all scrambling like spiders when you pick up the rock to cover for Jimmy Kimmel, and it's just keeps begging the question as it keeps getting worse and escalating, and now it looks like Pat McAfee, the guy whose show hosted the joke about Jimmy Kimmel, has declared all-out war against ESPN, and I couldn't be happier for it. If you hate Jimmy Kimmel and what he said about Americans, leave a like on this video. If you love the fact that the machine is squirming right now, make sure you leave a like and you share this video because this story is not going away. You can see this now. ESPN will handle Pat McAfee, Norby Williamson issue, quote, internally. Well, you might be asking, what exactly that is? Well, after Pat McAfee was forced to apologize for a joke that Aaron Rodgers, an NFL football player, made on his show about Jimmy Kimmel being nervous about the release of certain files from a certain creepazoid, then Pat McAfee went all out and pointed out that there were people at ESPN who are trying to sabotage his show. And on top of that, several former ESPN personalities chimed in to support Pat McAfee. So let me just summarize where we're at. Pat McAfee hosts Aaron Rodgers on his show every Tuesday. They talk about sports, they talk about aliens, they talk about whatever they want, okay? This past particular Tuesday, Aaron Rodgers said that, well, when that list comes out, some people are going to be nervous, mainly Jimmy Kimmel. Now, that is not a direct assertion that Kimmel would be on said list, but just that he might be nervous. Why? Probably because a bunch of his Hollywood buddies would be on that list. Aaron Rodgers at no point said directly that he was on the list. Let's also remember that Jimmy Kimmel has called him a whack packer, a nut job, a tinfoil hat person, and taken several critiques and made jokes at his expense on his late night talk show host. And the very first time that Aaron Rodgers clapped back, it has shaken the industry to the core. A throwaway joke a week ago now has ESPN's biggest signing, a guy who makes $17 million a year, openly calling out Disney and ESPN on his social media, all because of a single joke. Talk about pulling at a little thread, right? Just pulling at a little thread about these Hollywood PDF files, as we say on YouTube, of course. He just yanked a little bit, just a yoink, a little tiny pull on that thread, and look at what's happening. You have ESPN coming out and saying, "Oh, forgive her, please. Oh, Disney, we're going to apologize." Then Pat McAfee, who, quite frankly, is a self-made man in terms of his show. And I mean, yes, he was an NFL player, but he built his own show up from the ground up, starting on Barstool, I think, and then being on YouTube by himself, signing huge deals, all for a little joke. Pat McAfee now posts a cryptic Scarface clip on social media amid ESPN controversy after $17 million a year host claimed that network executive Norby Williamson is trying to sabotage his show in an extraordinary on-air rant. He said this on ESPN. On ESPN, he called them out. McAfee, who gets paid $17 million a year by ESPN, shared movie footage of Tony Montana's epic rant about lies and truths on Twitter just a day after slinging out Williamson, ESPN executive, on Friday's episode of a 3-hour daily show. You need people like me, so we all know how the clip goes. McAfee was spotted signing autographs at Lucas Oil Stadium before Colts Texans did not add a caption to his post, but it's safe to presume that the former NFL punter is referring to his ongoing beef with a higher up at ESPN. You see Clay Travis. Pat McAfee just called one of his ESPN bosses, Norby Williamson, by name, by the way, a rat on air, and said he was actively sabotaging the show. Get your popcorn. This is no doubt true. By the way, definitely some ESPN attacking Pat McAfee from inside.
Anyways, we're very appreciative, and we understand that more people are watching this show than ever before.
He's basically saying, look, in this clip, which I can't play because ESPN will claim it, he just says, look, I don't care. I don't care. I had my own show before. He had a decent NFL career. He's got plenty of money. As a punter, he was decently paid. He's been successful with his YouTube show. I always knew that this was going to be a conflict of interest. Now there's some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN. More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson on the guy who's attempting to sabotage our program. The former punter admitted he lacked concrete proof. Then, of course, all this for a Jimmy Kimmel Jeffrey joke. Keep this in mind. This all stems from a Jimmy Kimmel Jeffrey joke. ESPN said, no one is more committed and invested to ESPN's success than Norby Williamson, the statement read. At the same time, we are thrilled with the multi-platform success that we've seen from the Pat McAfee show. Look, Pat McAfee was extremely successful on YouTube. On YouTube. None of these dork talking heads would have ever made it on social media platforms. Sure, you have like Shannon Sharp with his Club Shay Shay podcast now, but all this stuff is only popular now once they've been on ESPN. Nobody from ESPN is going out there and actively doing great in the podcasting scene who isn't already a super mega huge star. Now, ESPN acknowledges Rodgers' quote, dumb joke. Again, this is an article from yesterday. It is still going. But feud will go as far as Jimmy Kimmel wants to take it. The bitter feud between Jimmy Kimmel and Aaron Rodgers is still raging, and the ball is now squarely on Kimmel's court, sources tell Front Office Sports. Threat of legal action against Rodgers, which we all know that lawyers have come out to say would not work at all in court, who linked the ABC star to, of course, Jeffrey. On the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday, there's a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, really hoping that list doesn't come out. Asked about the situation on Friday, ESPN Senior Vice President of Digital and Studio Productions, Mike Foss, did not condone Rodgers' comments. He says that he expects the Jet quarterback to remain on the show through the rest of the football season. It looks like, I'd be willing to bet you that ESPN has told Pat McAfee that they want Aaron off the show. And look, Pat McAfee's show was pretty successful without Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays. But let's not forget that Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays is probably what got him that ESPN deal in the first place. Pat McAfee is an electric personality. You knew he was going to be successful anyway. But Aaron Rodgers appearing on that show weekly, dropping dimes, dropping little jokes, dropping little this, that, and the other thing, would create headlines for Pat McAfee for days. Okay, Pat knows that. And the idea that this is going to continue to rage on. You see Pat McAfee, while on ESPN, accuses certain ESPN executives. I mean, of course, Pat McAfee this morning posts that scene for Tony Montana. Williamson, born in Central Connecticut, by the way, all you need to know about him. In September 2017, Williamson became ESPN's executive vice president of studio production. He was formerly critical of Stuart Scott's "Booyah" catchphrase and once told Bob Lay that his beard looked stupid. I don't know how this guy get in. I don't know how this guy got into his job. He's probably just falling back in there. I don't know. ESPN executive Norby Williamson wanted Pat McAfee out of there.
People actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN. Funny. More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson is the guy.
Just calling him out by name. You've got to give absolute massive balls to your boy Pat McAfee,
who is attempting to sabotage our program.
And then they hit him with "I'm not leaving." I mean, all of this because of a tiny joke. Now, ESPN, of course, issuing an apology because remember, ESPN is owned by Disney, probably the greatest concentration of PDF files, allegedly, on the planet. They issued an apology on Friday saying that through ESPN vice president says it was a dumb and factually inaccurate joke. never should have happened, Foss said in a statement obtained by USA Today Sports. We all realized it in the moment. Front Office Sports first reported the ESPN apology. McAfee said Friday that Rodgers will appear on the show next Tuesday, which I expect is going to be explosive. Now, I would suspect that Aaron Rodgers will probably come on there and be like, hey, I'm not trying to screw over your show. He might walk it back a little bit, but I don't think Pat McAfee's going to want him to walk it back. I think he is creating an opportunity for himself to break away from ESPN and just do his own thing, which is what a lot of content creators do, right? He's figuring it out. He's young enough to understand. Like, he could do a daily show. I mean, when he does his daily shows on ESPN, he's got 40, 50, 60,000 viewers. When he's got Aaron on, he's over 100,000. I mean, he could be really like a Joe Rogan type guy. He doesn't need ESPN. He just has everything he already needs. He's got his bag. He's got plenty of money, and like earlier this day, they talked about the potential release of court documents. We already talked about that. This whole thing is crumbling down. Here's Jamel Hill, former ESPN personality, who wrote, I can relate. You also had ex-ESPN host Michelle Bedell replied to Hill saying, well, laughing, crying emoji. And a former executive producer for the Dan Le Batard show, Mike Ryan, posted Pat with 3 clapping emojis. Le Batard previously aired on ESPN. So everybody at ESPN is turning on each other. All these former people at ESPN, owned by Disney, are having meltdowns, calling people out publicly, all because that Aaron Rodgers made a Jimmy Kimmel joke. I mean, this whole thing is spiraling, and it's only going to get more hilarious tomorrow when Aaron's on the show again, and I can't wait to watch it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope Jimmy Kimmel's squirming, and we'll talk to you again real soon.